Arch, is the Greenway unflooded yet?
I don't know. I'm going to find out this afternoon.
Okay, we are live. We have a few attendees in, so we can start.
Hey, thank you everyone for being here this morning. I'm going to call the meeting to order. First, we have public comment. Mike, who do we have on the line?
Yeah, so anyone that's joined to listen in, if you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise your hand button on your computer. First one up is Doug Johnson. Doug, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Good morning, everybody.
Good
Mayor
morning,
Baldwin,
Doug.
stop me at 3 minutes. I really feel in the way because I know everybody's eager to get started on the work that needs to be done. But I wanted to make the point that every highly successful project needs a critic, and not one that complains, but challenges. So the best equipped critic is each of you. It's up to you to be your own worst critic. So that's my platitude for the morning. But truly, digging a little deeper, expecting more, and asking, and I'm going to throw out a couple of asks that I'd like to follow up on with those of you who are interested, and I'll send information to Kate, and those of you who want that, you can let her know that you'd like to look at it. Dix is a startup project. Why is it underfunded? It's complicated and fragmented, and we have resources in people that we can cut through all of that. Don't leave it all to Grace and Mon to find ways to phase projects and to do parallel projects, but cut to the chase, particularly in dealing with our the state agency that we share the campus with. Have another look at things, the farmers market master plan and some of the possible flaws that might be created by the money we've spent to get them to do such a good one if it's not given greatest attention. Ask yourselves where Mercury Avenue and Hamill Drive are and how they'll be part of showing how serious we are about Dix Park. Expect from developers of Downtown South and Southern Gateway to show us how they'll increase what Michael Van Valkenburg has called the psychological intensity of Dix Park. Remember that NCSU is not the only campus affected and affecting the park. It's one of 5. Think about why as is likely to be the highest and best use of important parts of the Centennial campus. Think about what more we can expect from the Appearance Commission, Planning Commission, Bicycle Pedestrian Commission, Greenway, Park and Greenway Advisory Board, all those groups to contribute. And may even ask why the most conspicuous highest point of the park and Plaza area is a parking lot that consumes more space than any of the other plaza and play area components, and diminishing the room available for the adventure play area, which now is maybe a quarter the size of the one in Tulsa. But don't look at that as something you got to solve now, but what it tells you about planning for the next part of the project, which will also have parking problems, and on until you're as weary as I get sometimes thinking about all the work you've got to do. But I say bravo, straight ahead, and I think I reflect the community's whole experience of how much faith we believe is justified in the dedication that all of you have shown. That not one of you have ever even imagined thinking of Raleigh as America's good enough capital city, much less Dix Park as the nation's good enough urban destination park.
Thank you, Doug.
All right,
Michael,
if there's anyone else from the public that's joined, if you'd like to make a comment, please click on your raised hand function and I can unmute yourself. I think we are in the clear.
okay. Doug's comment reminds me of our dear friend whom we lost, Steve Schuster, who would oftentimes say to critics, oh, it's good enough for Raleigh. And I think Doug makes a great point. We have to look at how we're going to be great, not how we're going to be good. With the agenda today, I understand we don't have approval of minutes, so we will skip that till the next meeting. And next we have the community committee report.
Hey everyone, sorry I'm joining you from the car from Greensboro, but I'll let Kate and others from the team kind of fill in anything. We've had a little bit of a pause between meetings, but we are gearing up for task force meetings to begin. So Joey and Kate and Trey have been busy facilitating all of that. So I'll kind of defer to them to talk about next steps with that and looking forward to getting the bigger community committee back together.
Yeah, just to add a little to what Shauna mentioned is we're launching a series of task forces, which are smaller groups of community committee members thinking about very specific things like early park improvements, park partnerships, equity. And so those task forces are coming together this month in preparation for an April everybody community committee meeting. So good work is about to start up again, and we're excited to get those task forces underway.
Okay, next we have project updates. Early park improvements is first. Who's going to take that?
I'm going to take that. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's having a great Tuesday. So just want to share some exciting updates that are going on at the park. If you've had the opportunity to visit the park in the last month, you've seen some of our new park amenities going in, which we call early park improvements. So I just wanted to kind of give an overview of where we were with those park improvements. Lost the PowerPoint. There it is. Great. So just wanted to kind of outline some of the things that we've completed. So we're in our phase 1 of early park improvement implementation. And just some of the things as you're out on the campus that you'll see, we've installed new benches on the big field. There are standalone benches and swinging benches. The park visitors in the bottom right gave me permission to share their photo of them enjoying the new swinging benches on the big field. We installed 6 of those on the Barber Drive edge of the big field. And there's also standalone benches as well. We've also installed a new hammock grove in the pine tree grove that separates the big field and Williams Field on the farmers market side of the big field. You can see some photos there. That has already become very popular. I had a couple of folks text me over the weekend and say it was packed. So folks are really enjoying that new amenity. We've also added new bike racking in the park for folks to be able to secure their bikes when they're biking to the park. And then we've also added new park signage, as you'll see in the photo as well, that we've already received tons of great feedback from the community on just being able to navigate the site. So we're so excited that these new improvements are going in and really starting to enhance the visitor experience that folks can have when they come to the park. We also have several aspects of phase 1 that are still in progress. The magnolia and the oak rooms are coming to light. If you've been over by the sunflower field, you can see the beginning of that construction. The new swing set frame is up. The crews will be back on site next week completing that work. And then we'll be moving to the oak room to install the new picnic tables, the new shade structures and those pieces, hopefully just in time for as we're transitioning into late spring, early summer into the park so folks can come out and have those great amenities as they're enjoying the beautiful space. So we'll continue to provide updates as those projects are moving along, but it's really excited that those things are happening. Also wanted to provide an update about the chapel. So we have last week we received our temporary certificate of occupancy. Right now, the crew is pushing through those final punch list items in the building, just getting everything perfect before we start opening the space to events and things of that nature. Christopher Holt, the artist, will be back in the chapel in the next couple of weeks, finishing up the narthex painting in the front of the building. And then our staff will start moving into the space, and programming will kick off in April as well. There's a kind of an example of what the inside of the space looks like. It has just come out beautiful from the renovation, and you can see some of the tables and chairs. We've kind of been playing with different event setups there. So just so excited about how that space is coming together. There's an example of some of the staff spaces there in the back of the facility as well. So it's really made a lot of progress. We look forward to inviting all of you into the space soon to kind of see how it's all been set up and the potential that it has to really be an asset for the park moving forward. So, okay, if you want to go to the next slide. Also wanted to just give an update on spring programming. Our spring programming started back up this past week. We have some of our classic returning programs, our yoga that occurs. You can see a picture example of how we have modified yoga with the different social distance spaces. Our wonderful parks crew painted spaces on the ground where folks can adequately socially distance while they're doing yoga safely. We've also, our historic walking tours are back. Every time we do one of those, those tickets completely sell out. People are just so intrigued by the history of the space, and our preschool nature programs. And I'm excited that we've added some new programming as well. We have added a weekly Tai Chi, a monthly bird watching, which the first one of those was this past Saturday, youth and teen yoga. We're starting our chapel art classes, and then really excited working with Ernie Dollar over at the City Museum. We're going to be doing a Civil War history walk in April as well to really kind of talk about the history of the Civil War encampment at the park as well. So we have some really excited programming pieces that are coming up this spring. We've really been focused on how we can do those safely during the pandemic. And as we've been putting those out, those tickets have been going very quickly. People are really excited to return to the park to do that programming in a safe way. Also really excited that this Saturday we are doing our spring bunny hunt. We've worked with a local artist that has painted 3-foot bunnies that we will be doing a scavenger hunt around the park, kind of in lieu of an egg hunt, where folks will go around, find those bunnies and grab some fun prizes and have some fun engagement with our staff over in the front of the chapel. So that's this Saturday, and we're really excited for that as well. So be happy to answer any questions about early park improvements, the chapel, or park programming.
I have a couple questions. You mentioned art programming in the chapel. Can you expand on that a little and tell me what that is?
Happy to. So we're starting very slowly with programming in the chapel, trying to be very kind of mindful of social distancing in those pieces. The first round of art programming that we're doing is in partnership with Art Space, where they're doing some family focused art programs in the chapel, very small classes where folks can be spread out, kind of craft based art programs. We look forward to expanding those programs in the future, but we're starting very slowly with those programs that are occurring in the chapel.
And is that mostly driven by the fact that we have COVID restrictions right now? I mean, it sounds like, are you looking for something you can do in there that's small?
Yeah, we thought it was a really good first step, with COVID restrictions, just kind of really being mindful of how we move into utilizing that space. We felt like that was a good first safe step of a program to do in that space, just to be COVID safe.
Okay, I think that space just has such amazing potential for, I know we've talked about weddings and a lot of other events, but I guess until your COVID restrictions are lightened up.
Yeah, I completely agree. We've been working a lot behind the scenes too. We'll be launching soon the kind of packages to use the space for weddings and events and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. We look forward to launching that information next month. But again, like you alluded to, just being really mindful and really strategic with how we're doing those pieces in the space. The other kind of factor that we have to really think about is with DHHS in the parking agreement on site, it really restricts what we can do kind of during the business day, kind of the 9 to 5 time for parking. So a lot of that has to be focused in nights and weekends. But yeah, we're just taking methodical steps, thinking about COVID and all of those pieces to really be mindful of how we do that. But there's a lot in the works for the chapel that we'll be announcing soon.
So I'm not sure if this, well, first, the second question is, what time is the bunny hunt?
So it is
That's
from, yeah, absolutely. It's from 10 to 3 on Saturday. And the way we're
Okay.
doing it is it's in different shifts. So people have registered for tickets in small shifts just to
Okay.
manage the number of people that are coming on Saturday.
And how do they register for tickets?
It's through Eventbrite. I'd be happy to share some information. with you.
Okay. And has the city had any, I don't know who this question is for. Has the city had any conversations about like late summer, early fall events? I know everybody's asking, and I've certainly been asked about Greenville and Bluegrass, I mean, all those kinds of things and bigger things. Is that going to be a kind of wait and see how COVID restrictions go, or is the city maybe having thoughts on that?
It's a
So-
wait and see.
I know that, you know, obviously a lot of those events take months to plan, so.
Yep.
Puts everybody in a tough place.
Joey, let me ask you a question. There was discussion about the rates that would be charged to use the chapel. It's a spectacular space, and the feeling of it is, maybe I just didn't have the imagination to get the point. But it's really extraordinary, and I hope that as a self-sustaining fundraising opportunity for the gardens around it and for other things, that we charge a commensurate price. Is the city, has been more discussion about that?
Yeah, there definitely has been some more discussion. It's something we're reviewing right now. We definitely see kind of the potential and beauty of the space. So it's definitely something that we're reviewing at this point and having some conversation about now.
Yeah, every dollar that you get from somebody enjoying that space is $1 that we don't raise or you don't put in the bond issues. So until we get so much money, we don't care anymore. We need to try to get a fair price for that and fund the ongoing expenses and improvements to keep it just as fabulous as it looks today.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'd look at like All Saints Chapel and triple it because it definitely holds more people. Look at some commensurate, you know, event spaces that size.
Yeah, we've done that. We're definitely reviewing that information now. So yes.
Okay, great.
Any other questions for me? If not, Kate, kick it back over to you.
Joey, could you take
Yes, ma'am.
down the, thank you, because I couldn't see everybody. Does anybody else have any questions for Joey? Okay, thank you, Joey.
You're welcome.
Good work. And I agree what Carlton was saying and Nancy about rental fees, whatnot. This is not just another public park. It's our destination park. And we really need to look at how we can use that type of fee structure to support operations. So just so we have some direction on that. So thank you.
Mayor, can I make one more comment? I just wanted to just take a moment and just thank the Dix Park Conservancy for all the funding and the partnership that they provide us to help provide these programs to the public for free. And it's just an asset to the community and the park that we just can't say thank you enough for. So I just want to make sure that I say that we're able to do all these things because of those generous donations and that partnership. So just want to say thank you to the Conservancy.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you, Conservancy. And one other thing I wanted to ask Joey, are we tracking the zip codes for all the tickets? And like, we've talked a lot about this, building support outside of the district for the park. And these events are a great way to do that. I know we had great success with Nights of Lights in terms of a lot of usage from outside the area. So if you can, just provide us with some details on that in the future.
Be happy to. Yes, that is a required question when folks register for programs, so we can track that. So we'd be happy to provide some of that information.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Branch, you had a question?
Yes, well, more of a comment, as we're looking at rates and comparing rates and everything, let's also keep in mind that we want to make sure that the park is accessible for all in our community. So as we're looking at those rates, we may have to look at ways to help, make sure that a variety of our population can use it in other ways of offsetting costs. So just want to mention that.
I think that has to be one of our guiding principles and is. So, okay, next we have the update on the Plaza and Play.
Good morning. Good to see everybody. I have just a few slides. I'm going to, yes, there goes Kate. Thank you so much. It's been an exciting few months. Not a ton to visually present to you all. This is our overall schedule. You can see that we are nearing the end of schematic design. We have received the 100% schematic design submittal from the design team. They have been working closely with our construction management at risk firm, which is Balfour Beatty paired with Holt Brothers. That is proving to be a nice partnership with the design and making sure that it is in budget. Having lots of eyes, make sure that our design is something that we can deliver. We anticipate that our next public meeting will be this summer, June or July, where we have gotten into the design development phase and refined the design a little bit more and have that final public meeting then. Next slide, please. So this probably mirrors very closely the last design that you saw, but just thought it would be fun to have a refresher. The design is looking really great. And then I just have one final slide that shows a rendering of the grand staircase looking out over the Plaza area with the waterfall wall. And you can see the new Grove lawn and how it connects to Harvey Hill and the skyline in the back. So that's really about all I have for now. We've been working hard at the staff level and have been enjoying the process and seeing the design unfold.
And just one thing to add, I'll give Grayson a lot of kudos. She's been working with a interdisciplinary team of staff from every department across the city in reviewing this first submission. And so we've got a lot of great comments, building a lot of support within the city to make sure we deliver a great project. So thank you, Grayson, for all your work coordinating and herding everyone along.
Thanks, Kate. I think it's going to make a really solid design to have all these departments behind us. The other thing I will mention is that I've been doing a few site walks now that we have some renderings and can start to imagine what the space is going to look like. So if people are interested in joining that, there's one this Saturday and then another one scheduled in April. And they're usually at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and it's about an hour and a half. And it's a nice way to get out into the park and start to see how the design is going to unfold while being out in the space.
Grayson, how are we publicizing that?
That's all done with our other activities and events through newsletters on our website, through Eventbrite, and then also social media.
How many
do we
people
need to
do we
sign
have
up for-
showing up?
Sorry.
How many people do we have?
Showing up?
Well, we do have, of course, the restrictions for COVID for the amounts, but I think the last one I had about 25 people show up. So that was a nice crowd for that.
Have we also publicized through the Conservancy your emails?
Yes, they usually promote through their newsletters as well.
Yeah, I just put a note. We both, the city and the Conservancy, have about 20,000 plus individually. So we're, those probably some overlap, but I think those have been pretty effective in getting a word out. But always looking at more channels on how we can promote these events.
Does anybody have any questions for Grayson? Corey?
Just a comment, maybe we can also try to leverage some of our other parks as some activity picks up. I know there's a board in certain parks that we can maybe post and put information in. So I think that may be a good way to help get the word out too, at some of our larger parks.
Sure, certainly.
Any other questions?
Madam Mayor, I just had a
Yes.
point.
Hey, Jennifer.
Hello. Grayson, do we need to get tickets in advance if we want to do that site walk with you?
Yes, registration is required.
Okay.
So that goes through, if you can find it on the Dix Park website, under the events tab, everything is listed there.
Okay, great. I'll go look at it now. Thank you.
Just dropped it into the chat too. If for programs like yoga and the bunny hunt and walking tours and Plaza Play, you can go directly to the dixpark.org/calendar or /calendar and /calendar. And it's all there. You can click on those and it'll take you to register, whatever way that slash is going.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we have Michael Moore here with us, our Director of Transportation. And Michael is going to update us on Lake Wheeler Road. Thanks for being here, Michael.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. Kate, I think you're driving, so if you don't mind, you'll pull up our slides here. I'm going to briefly walk through some slides and give you an update on kind of where we stand with the status of Lake Wheeler Road and getting that kicked off as a project. Share just a few slides here to refresh everyone's memory kind of about some of the condition and the appearance of Lake Wheeler today. Most folks know it's a minor arterial. It kind of varies between a 2-lane road and a 5-lane road as it approaches the farmers market and 440. Just important to note, the city has management and maintenance of the part sort of from Maywood to South Saunders, while NCDOT has the portion from Maywood down from Centennial to 440. So we've got some coordination that we're doing through all these projects. Next slide, please. And since you all know this better, probably better than I think you all recognize that Lake Wheeler has a lot of challenges with it as well. It has no curb and gutter. It has no bike facilities. Despite the fact that people try to use this to ride into Dix from downtown to the farmers market, it has no sidewalk for the better part of its length, and it's in really pretty poor shape. We recently started a fairly comprehensive analysis of all the street pavements we've got here in the city. And this one has an average rating of 31.85, and that's on a 100-point scale. And we have as low as 23 in some sections and as high as 54 in some other sections. The street also has some challenges just with grade. There's about 40 feet of fall from roughly Hamill all the way down to the South Saunders intersection. But it also has some cross grades that are also kind of challenging to work with. And of course, homes are right on the sidewalk, or right on the back of the curb of the sidewalk in some spots. And of course, we've got Duke Energy transmission towers that kind of line the Dix Park side of the street. So a lot of challenges there. Next slide, please. So Raleigh Street Plan calls for this to become a 2-lane divided, which would be a lane in each direction with a center median, and the center median could be planted, but can also be the sort of turn pockets for folks to get in and out of driveways and in and out of the park access points. Next slide, please. And I think you're also all aware that there's the Dix Edge study that's underway that's looking at kind of how we could better integrate the community into the park and use Lake Wheeler Road as kind of the way to help stitch the two together in a fashion. That Edge study is going to produce a custom streetscape, and here you can see one, and I want to make sure that I note that this is a draft, that there's still a lot of options that are under consideration, but This sort of represents what would be a more typical, that 2-lane divided. You can see the travel lanes, the median, the sidewalk areas. And then here you'll see that there's a 12-foot side path for bikes, and then a separate pedestrian path on the park side for sidewalk. So people can access that into the park a little easier. And then, of course, we've got the opportunity for some green stormwater infrastructure in this option as well. Next slide, please. So based on a lot of that work, we've worked with our friends in engineering services, and we've developed some cost estimates here that I think may have been shared with you before, but I just wanted to go back through these once again. And you can see that we've got a number, it's kind of a pretty big range here between about 14.5 million all the way to 42 million. And those variances are really dependent on how we want to approach those transmission utilities of Dukes. I want to highlight one thing here and note that the survey design and utility coordination is about 1.2 million. And we'll come back to that here at the end as a sort of a strategy to move ahead. But next slide, please. So those transmission strategies, how we handle those, just want to walk you through those. So that first estimate, the low end, basically realigns what's in the roadway now out of the roadway to the park edge. And that, again, is on the low end and is about 18 to 24 months to complete that work. The second estimate is a little more expensive, but it removes and reduces the number of those poles. So we get slightly bigger poles, we get the truss tower out of the way, get the monopoles in, and will help minimize the impact of that park edge. That's slightly longer to complete, about 24 to 36 months. I bet to 30 months, I'm sorry. The third estimate, we really do a jump in the cost on that one, and that essentially reroutes that transmission line completely away from Lake Wheeler, probably down Maywood or perhaps down Mercury. We'll continue to work with Duke on that. But that takes about 24 to 36 months to complete. The last estimate, the $42 million, completely undergrounds their transmission lines. That 42 million, I just want to put a caveat on that. There's a lot of risk in that. This is new technology for Duke in this area. And how we would handle that would, again, we'd both be learning together on how to put those underground. And what we find as we do that is fairly risky. So next slide, please. So with all of that in mind, I also wanted to highlight just a lot of other things are going on in the area. Of course, we know the Plaza and Play is going to be fantastic and a huge draw and for the community. We know that Healing Transitions has got a renovation and expansion underway. And we also know that we've got some development at the north end of the park with Park City South, and then with a rezoning right there where you see that Z6020, that's asking for a rezoning from industrial to commercial mixed use. That is not very far along. We're waiting for some more information on that in the form of traffic analysis. They've not held their neighborhood meeting yet. So that one, still a lot of details to be learned about that one. There are some other projects underway that you'll see here at the bottom. You'll see where the farmers market has done a new driveway out to Lake Wheeler. That includes some sidewalk, and we're doing some additional sidewalk with one of the transit improvements on the east side of Lake Wheeler there, just near Good and Healing Transitions. The city also has a project underway to do sidewalks on Maywood. So Maywood has a portion of that section has some sidewalks on it, but not fully along the length. We'll be doing that project. Should start bidding on that this spring with a completion later in fall of 2022. So there's a lot of things happening there. Next slide, please. We also recognize that there are some pieces that we kind of need to fill in, and you'll excuse, this is my very crude drawing done in PowerPoint. The red line is the new farmers market driveway, and the purple line is the Maywood sidewalks. What you see there in the dotted yellow line and in the blue circle, we recently retooled some of our programs that are in the 2017 transportation bond and created a new program called the Complete Streets Implementation Program. We had taken from some area plans, some other studies, and out of those had identified a list of projects. And one of the projects that rose to the top was completing some of the gaps in some of these other pieces that are happening here on Lake Wheeler now. So what this represents is a project to prioritize about 1.8 million to do a new signal there at the blue circle. That would be a full movement to help get pedestrians across the street and to help create some safer movements there at the Farmers Market Drive, but then to also do a full bicycle side path between Centennial and Good that would help connect folks down into the Farmers Market. The Farmers Market driveway has a sidewalk in it, but this would expand that to be a full 10-foot bicycle side path that could be used for both bikes and pedestrians. And again, would extend that all the way up to Good Street, where there's entry into the park. This is a little heavy in terms of cost, but because we have a big unknown there in that we've got to do coordination with North Carolina Railroad at the railroad crossing. So we were fairly generous in some contingency on that particular project. We hope we can get some project savings out of this and maybe able to expand the scope a little bit. We're also in discussion with North Carolina DOT. They had programmed some safety improvements in this area, and we're hoping we can get them to help us participate in the signal at Maywood. So there's some opportunities there that we're continuing to explore. Next slide, Kate. There's also another opportunity with Park City South development at the south end. So they are in design and they're doing some work now. And again, this is my crude drawing. I apologize but I felt it was necessary for us to be able to actually read the line work in this. What you see in the blue is the existing alignment of Lake Wheeler. The Park City South project and the street plan call for realigning that intersection between South Saunders and Lake Wheeler Road. Folks probably know that this is a fairly challenging intersection just in terms of your approach to it. It's got a lot of pavement. It's very close to the Rocky Branch Greenway trailhead, a crossing. This realignment brings South Saunders in and makes it sort of secondary to the Lake Wheeler Road movement. It'll have to have some elevation changes in that. This is an opportunity for us to partner with the developer here in this particular case to get this constructed a little bit early as part of their project. If the city were to come in to do this after they've got their project underway, they can make provisions for us to do that, but it's going to be very disruptive for their project in the future. And we've had some very good conversations with how we might be able to partner to do this together, maybe even to have them build this for us and participate financially through a P3 program that the city has in place already. So next slide, please. So you see that there's a lot underway, and kind of primary to that is for us to have a good plan in place that everybody can kind of work to. So with that in mind, transportation is going to take an item to the May 4th City Council meeting and ask to reallocate 1.5 million from the DOT project participation program that's in the 2017 bond. Folks probably know that NCDOT had a delay in a number of their projects. We feel like we could probably move some money from that bond program to this project and advance the Lake Wheeler work without a lot of consequence to without a lot of consequence to the DOT project participation. If you'll recall, I said that the design, the surveys, the utility coordination is going to be about 1.2 million. We are going to take 1.5 asked to the council so we can have an additional 30,000 for that development coordination and participation at that South Saunders intersection that I mentioned previously. So we feel that that's going to give us enough money that we can get the project in design, underway, and ready to go. And then as people bring on new parts of the project, as the Plaza and Play come into place, we'll be able to have that that design ready for them to have a build to line. It potentially can also help us identify other early action items that we can get underway together. the complete streets implementation program is going to finalize their scoping for that Lake Wheeler Road Gap project. We're going to work with engineering services, and hopefully we'll line up the timing on this. And we can get a single design consultant that can do both projects. So we've got that completely integrated. And again, we've got an opportunity to really set the stage for all the great work that Parks and the Conservancy are doing at that edge of Dix Park and get this moved ahead. So that's my update. Any questions? I'll be happy to entertain those.
I have one question, Nancy. You talked about the working on the integration of the two projects. Did you mean those two projects that you were just talking about? Or are you talking about the integration of like the improvements at Maywood with the redevelopment of Lake Wheeler?
Yes. So
okay.
So what we want to do is to make sure that we get a single design consultant and line that timing up such that we've got the complete streets improvement program, all of those have those designed by the same consultant that will do this, the overall design for the Lake Wheeler Road improvements. The Maywood project is already in design. That's something we'll come to meet. It'll be an existing condition that will come to meet, basically.
Hey, Michael, I have a question on the 4 proposals regarding Duke Energy. At the end of the day, who will make the final decisions, you know, from one cost being so low versus the big number there?
I think that's one that we're going to have to work together on as we continue to scope and work through the design. I think as we get a design underway, we may find that 1 or 2 of those solutions kind of fall out just because one may fall out because of expense, the other may fall out because we just find it's going to be an easier and quicker to implement. We're just going to have to work together and kind of weigh the cost, you know, the benefit cost of both of all of those to kind of come to that conclusion. So,
okay, because
help us flesh that out a little bit with.
You know, when you look at the 4 proposals, it's really easy to say, you know what, that first proposal is good enough.
Yeah, I think as we've looked at it, that may be, I think again, as we work through and say, where do the polls actually end up and what are the impacts there? We might decide that. We might decide the second one where we reduce the number and kind of minimize the impact on the park edge, that's a value add.
Right.
We'll just continue to work. We're going to have to continue to work through that, and the design will help us do that.
Okay, thank you.
So I see Tansy and Grayson with their hands raised.
And I just wanted to acknowledge the work of this team and Grayson and the work of MVVA. And I actually think we're in a really good position that the park development has been really thoughtful about how to design around the constraints of the transmission lines. And so, you know, ultimately, I think in that trade-off in terms of the impacts of trying to grow that project to address the power lines really aggressively, that is a really significant financial commitment in terms of competing priorities. So I really appreciate the work that the staff has done to really envision how to utilize that part of the space, even with the constraints of the transmission lines. That's, I think, a really value add. And I think actually helps contribute to sort of the transition from the neighborhoods into the park. So I think that's a glass half full kind of trade-off there.
Grayson, did you have something you wanted to add?
I'm sorry, I'm going to pass on that.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, this was a good discussion. Michael, thank you for the work that you and your team have done on this. I think you all know we've heard from the Conservancy many times that this has to be a priority. And I think you've seen that staff is stepping up to make it so. And so with that, there's no other discussion about the Lake Wheeler Road, we'll jump to the next item. Is everybody good?
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
All right, thank you, Michael. Next is discussion to follow up the council retreat.
So I thought just in preparation for this, Janet, if you wanted just to share high level kind of Janet and Jennifer and Mayor and Councilmember Branch, y'all were all participants there. So thought we could start there and then move forward. But Janet, I don't know if you want to share your reactions first and then we can, or what you presented, I'm sorry, first, and then we can go from there.
Sure. And I mean, I'll just share verbally since a number of you have seen the material, but no, we appreciated the chance to take part in the city strategic planning retreat, and glad that, y'all took a day and a half of your lives, to sort of take a step back and think big picture about where the city's going. With the parks bond discussion, we had Orage Quarles and Jim Goodman in the room, and then I presented. We talked about really what it takes to start funding phase one with the city bond. We have the 18.5 acres on Lake Wheeler Road, which is the Plaza play. And so we were emphasizing what it takes to actually get that finished. So 55 million for the actual playground. There's the operations center for the playground, another 5, a multi-use path. One thing we've heard from all of our polls and public input is accessibility, and Councilor Branch just mentioned that again, right, for the park, the buildings, the usage. So that was sort of a total package around just the Plaza play of around 65 million. Then there was a infrastructure master plan, which we just reiterated the importance of that as DHHS exits this campus and the 85 buildings fall to the city, the more you can pre-plan on which buildings should just be removed, which should be repurposed. That will certainly save the city a lot of money. So that so that was the building analysis, and then infrastructure, water, sewer, electric, all those kind of basics. So that was the initial, and then also keeping the full master plan moving, we had also included the Rocky Branch Creek study. So we came with a total of around 73 million in costs to do the bulk of that phase one work, plus some of the early creek. And then we committed that we would raise 20 million of that. So that got the city's amount for the bond around 53 million. That did not include Lake Wheeler Road, which of course Michael Moore just spoke to. We are really happy there's planning money for that road. We feel that completion of that road before you introduce 1 million people a year into Plaza Play, as well as the farmers market, the other developments that Mike just detailed, is critical. How you pay for that, we defer to the city, how you best work with your transportation, et cetera. If it is part of the bond, then we are open to that, because we do want to see the project completed. Those were the main points. The other things I shared were just as we think about what we fund in the bond, the economic impact of Dorothea Dix Park. It is a public-private partnership, so unlike a community park, it has the potential to have revenue streams and economic impact. I shared Dreamville. Adam Rodney of Dreamville just joined our board recently, so we're really excited to have him as part of it, and looking forward to the next time we can host Dreamville. We're also workforce development. There's just so many ways that Dix can contribute to the broader economic, vibrant context of the city. And then last but not least, we just talked about Dix as the really potential to be the most inclusive place in Raleigh. And part of that is its positioning the proximity to downtown with all of its diversity and vibrancy, but also next to NC State and Shaw and, you know, just all the surrounding neighborhoods and those folks. So it's just a space that has a lot of potential to be the gathering spot for Raleigh, to be the most welcoming place in Raleigh. And so that was our final pitch to you know, include this in the bond and why it's such an important project for the city.
Thank you. That was a good wrap up, Janet. And I want to thank you and Orange and Jim for being there. Also wanted to say that I think the recommendation that you brought forward with 53 million, the commitment to raise 20 million went over very well with the council and how we approach the bond. So thank you for that. Orange, do you want to add anything?
Thank you, Mayor. I just, again, want to thank the city for allowing us to make our presentation. And I really feel that in the last few months that everyone is listening now and we're kind of in focus together. And we really much appreciate that. And it truly is a partnership. So we're looking forward to keep going forward, as they say. Thank you.
Okay, great. Oscar, do you have anything to add? Any thoughts?
No, I do want to go ahead and also echo your thoughts on appreciation for Janet, Orange, Jim, and also Jennifer representing the Park Recreation and Greenway Advisory Board at the council retreat. I think you know, by utilizing the information we had from the Conservancy, as well as the input that the recommendations from the PRGAB staff was able to provide the council some various funding scenarios, some various options to start the discussion on what this potential parks bond will look like. I think the council was very receptive to it. We received a lot of great feedback from the council on what we need to go ahead and work on next. And so right now we're updating those scenarios from the feedback that we received from council, and we will be returning back and presenting those recommendations back to council based on the feedback we received. But I think it was very positive. There's a lot of support for both Dix and the Parks Bond by council, which we're very appreciative of. And I just think we have some really great momentum moving forward.
Okay, thank you. I was actually going to call on Jennifer next.
Okay.
From the perspective of our Parks Board, you did present any thoughts or that you would like to share?
All right, thank you, Mayor. I appreciated being given the opportunity to speak on behalf of the board and the board's chance to be involved in the park bond process. Mostly my presentation was overview of the public process that we had and reviewing the project list that we had put forward. We had gone through the process a year ago and then looked at it again and reviewed it again this year to make sure we were still in alignment. One thing that was nice to see, and like you said, Orange, it feels like we're starting to come into alignment, is that we had written in our memo that we had assumed around $50 million for Dix, which was in addition to all of the projects that we had put forth for the tier recommendations for the bond. We did not include Dix in our recommendations because we were told that was sort of a separate thing for council to look at, but that was sort of our assumed number. So it's nice to see that that's coming together. Great questions that were put forward by council, and there's just a lot of worthy projects. And so it's helpful that as council is starting to dig into this, staff are there to support and, you know, offer kind of different scenarios. But overall, I think it's been a great process.
Okay, Councilmember Branch.
I think everyone has really touched it. Again, staff has a daunting task of taking all of the feedback and coming back with something that we can move forward on. And I look forward to seeing that. I definitely want to thank the Conservancy for coming and presenting. I want to thank Jennifer and the board for their work and everything that they put forth in the time. And I also want to thank the community for those that engage both groups as far as providing feedback and information. So I look forward to seeing what comes back before us. I think COVID is giving us some time, and we just need to use it wisely.
Thank you. Just a couple of things to follow up. One thing, we have been having conversations with Congressman Price. Even though he doesn't represent us anymore, he's been great about reaching out and also working with Deborah Ross in supporting her, kind of showing her the ropes in the House. He has reached out regarding funding needs, and we have been talking to his staff about the park and in particular the creek restoration and whether there might be federal dollars available for some of those aspects. We also know that there's going to be a major infrastructure program coming out. We'll see what the Biden administration does, and but I'm hearing trails. Federal government under Mayor Pete as the secretary understands how important that trails and greenways play in our transportation networks. So we expect to see more of an emphasis on that, and we're keeping our eye open for that for funding applications. But also, obviously, if there's opportunities to fund roads, we'll be looking at that as well. So one of the things, I think we've had some conversations about this, due to the census data coming in late, we do not believe there will be an election this October. We are waiting for some guidance from the General Assembly on when. They're thinking May, potentially as a date, which actually would give us a little more time to plan the bond. And we can see what happens with infrastructure, federal grants, whatnot, what would be eligible. And that might help us determine how we approach Lake Wheeler Road. So lots of moving parts at this point in time, but all positive moving parts. So, and I think too, what you heard at the council meeting is there was support for the $53 million for Dix Park. So again, I want to thank you all for bringing that forward and really working with us in a proactive way. So Kate, I'm going to turn it back up to you, over to you now. Any, I guess, round the table discussion, would you like to start?
Yeah, I just want to say the park is alive and well right now. The daffodils are in bloom. Oscar sent me a little text just to let everyone know that we got approval for sunflowers this summer, and we won't be doing large events, but we will be planting the sunflowers, which is exciting. So I think as our community gets vaccinated and we move into spring, if you want to see the power of parks, come to Dix on a Saturday or Sunday, and you're going to see how this space works for this community. And it's really an amazing thing to see. So lots of great stuff going on. Our team is super busy. We are looking forward to moving into the space with the Conservancy at the chapel. So all positive, and looking forward to a great, safe spring and summer as we move into mass inoculation or whatever it's called. So it's exciting.
Well, and if we can get fireworks at Dix Park, that would be very exciting too. I think what the city's looking at is Dix Park as the site starting in 2022. Let's see who, I was going to go around Carlton?
Very heartened about the Dix discussion, thrilled about the retreat. I think that's what government community transparency looks like. So I applaud your efforts in the way that was handled and its clear progress was made. Thank you.
Orridge, you're back.
Yeah, I'm back. I'll just echo what Carlton said. It feels like that we have some focus, and we really appreciate the fact that you all have a real balancing that you have to do. But I know, Mayor, you know how important this project is, and we appreciate the support you're giving. So, you know, it's all looking good. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Nothing additional. Thank you.
Okay. Nancy?
It may be too early for this comment, but I know that earlier when we were talking about doing a bond, we had talked about partnering with the chamber like we always do. And I'm assuming that we're going to do that again when we know when the election's going to be. In the past, you know, the chamber has done such a good job of setting up meetings with all these different, you know, whether they're neighborhood groups or, you know, Kiwanis or whatever it is, and taking staff for information and helping to present to really get information about the parks bond. Do you all plan to do that again?
Yeah, the chamber has, we started conversations with them a couple of months ago, several months ago. They are fired up to get this underway, and we're fully like moving forward, had the polling planned and everything. And then kind of got a monkey wrench thrown in here. But they are ready to go and committed to making that happen. So we will have that. My understanding is they will be working with the Conservancy as well.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yep. Janet?
Yeah, just to reiterate, Mayor, yeah, we have had a initial conversation with the chamber and didn't know as much about the timing as we do now, but yes, we will certainly be working in conjunction with them.
Okay. Let's see, anyone, Corey, do you have anything?
No, I'm good. Thank you all.
So I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in here too. Michael Moore, one thing we had talked about potentially was the strollway idea, connecting Chavis Park to Dix Park. Have we made any progress on that discussion?
Yes, we have, and we've been working with our colleagues at Parks to get started on that. We've talked about how we might try to do some activations on this summer to kind of bring some attention to the connection there. And then we're also doing, we've got some planning work we've been doing together to look at the kind of the long term on that as well. So yeah, we're making very good progress on that. And stay tuned. We've reached out to DRA, to our friends at Oaks and Spokes, and how we can work together on that summer activation. So.
Excellent. Councilmember Branch?
I'm good. I'm looking for, I know we're talking about Dix, but since you mentioned the strollway, I do want to talk about the bookend of the strollway with Dix, hopefully this summer, with Chavis Park, hopefully this summer, reopening the new community center. So just want to mention that since it books in the strollway.
Okay, thank you. Alicia.
Good morning. A couple of items I wanted to mention. I don't think it's been mentioned here today, but the partnership between NC State and Parks and Recreation to do the pop-up disc golf at Dix Park and Centennial East is running through the end of March. And I have to admit, I've been shocked by some of the numbers my team has reported, even given the bad rainy weather. There are a lot of disc golf enthusiasts. So we very much appreciate the opportunity to partner with the team at Dix and Parks and Recreation for those types of things. Also, just for general public awareness, NC State Live at the Lot is back at Centennial East Spring Hill for, I think, 4 performances here in April. It's a drive-in concert series and is part of our ongoing activation efforts at Centennial that I think really, pair well with a lot of the things that are going on at the park. And then last, I had mentioned at the January meeting that NC State had started a process to select an architect for our physical master planning process for our campus that will include consideration of Centennial East, Spring Hill. We have undergone interviews. They're working to contract with an architect. So I wanted to provide an update. I don't yet have a schedule or any sort of engagement opportunities to offer, but wanted to let people know that that process was moving forward. And I guess truly last but not least, we are also taking a look at some of the signage rules and regulations type of stuff around the parking lot that is at Spring Hill that's used both by the public as well as our population. So you are likely to see some signage coming up, public parking available between 5 p.m. and, whatever those timelines are, and on the weekends, and some NC State identity at that parking lot as well. So that is to come, but wanted to just let folks know.
Thank you, Alicia, and thank you for being a good partner. We appreciate NC State and all that you're doing as well.
Alicia, just do you have is there a link to Centennial East events or something where we can, I just want to make sure I'm aware of everything you're doing, because it sounds like you've got some great things going.
So Kate kindly popped the link for Live at the Lot into the chat.
Okay,
that's a Arts NC State Centennial collaboration. Like most organizations, our programming has been more limited given the COVID restrictions, but we're trying to get a few things out there. Under normal times, our Centennial website has a register of all of the different events, but I think the 2 I mentioned are really the only things out there right now as we think about sort of re-energizing those types of activities.
Thank you.
Yeah, I looked at the link. Looks pretty amazing. All right. Is there anything else that
David.
anyone would like to bring up?
David, we haven't heard from you. I don't know if, not to put you on the spot, but just want to make sure you got a chance.
Well, thank you. We're interested in, obviously, the Lake Wheeler Road development, as that will have a big impact on the farmers market. And it won't be long now before the farmers market will be teeming with activities and people as best as we can team during COVID. So we're looking forward to things beginning to open up. And as Commissioner Troxler has said, we're going to have a state fair this year. So I want everybody in North Carolina to get a jab so we can have a state fair. So.
Nicely said. Nancy?
Yeah, I have a question. We've talked a lot about the EDGE study, and back a few years ago before I left, one of the things, I know the EDGE study was a lot about the affordability and the changes, but part of that conversation was asking staff to look at almost like a taxing overlay. And I know that staff is researching some right now. We all know there's different forms of them, even something like almost like a business development district, because that property has been made significantly more valuable by the city's purchase and investment in the park. And so I just wondered is that part of the EDGE study? I'm not sure that it is, but is that something that the city could start to undertake?
Mayor, do you want me to try to address that?
Yeah, please, Tansy.
Yeah, so there's been a couple of reports that have been shared with the different councils about the value capture kind of amounts on the specifically adjacent. I think based on prior analysis, there's limited value capture opportunities based on some of the redevelopment. I think we'll revisit that after Edge and understand what the land use intensities. I think, as everybody knows, there's some just non-taxable properties around the park specifically. We are in active work. Jim Green is leading a cross-departmental team to work on a tax increment grant policy. There could be some application in this area. There's also been separate direction from the council coming out of the equitable development around transit report to look at a kind of a concept called an equity fund that would do some value capture for the different BRT lines and try to capture some of the growth based on those BRT investments for reinvestment in community amenities. And clearly there'd be an overlap in this area, potentially in that regard as well. So there are, to your point, there's already, the business improvement area opportunities that already exist, and that, the city has some of those already active. Again, we could certainly look at that particular tool with regard to this, but how those work is again, there's a district drawn with specific purposes. I think from prior analysis, we could certainly look at that in terms of what it would generate, but I think prior analysis based on the growth capacity and tax capacity specific to this area, it wouldn't generate really significant value capture, but we could certainly share some of that prior analysis and keep this group up to date as we continue to progress in the conversation about the TIG and the equity fund. Mayor, is that helpful?
Yes, and there has been some discussion about TIG and how that might be used to support operations at Dix Park. And so expanding a potential district, but that was brought up by ULI, I believe, during their study of downtown South, like creating a whole district and not just one area. So there's been discussion, Nancy. We're not there yet.
So I also think that, part of, you're right, we don't have, so much of the property around the park is state property. It's the, prison and NC State. And so we don't have that same ability, but you do have right now as a council, while these areas are coming to you for rezoning, the ability to look at them and say, what we need some serious partnership here. We have just, the reason you are rezoning and building this up is because we've invested in this park. And so, I think shared parking, like we did at the Dillon, they were building the Dillon. We knew we were going to need shared parking for Union Station. So we worked with them to get shared parking. I don't think it's out of line to ask them to help with the road. I think there's other things like that you all can ask for as we go through the rezoning process that we know is coming down the pike.
Well, I think, Nancy, there's a lot of delicacies there. But certainly shared parking makes a lot of sense and would be beneficial, I think, in a lot of ways. So we'll continue again to have those discussions.
Sure, thank you.
And the whole affordable housing issue is also, you probably saw in today's News and Observer, there was a major story on that. So that will continue to rise, especially as more development occurs around the park. So, okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, then I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Kate, our next meeting is
April fourth Tuesday in April. So April 1, 2, 3, 27.
Okay, we will see everybody then. Thank you so much for being here. I feel like we've made a lot of progress and we're heading in the right direction. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.